Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toku Portal Podcast Roundtable. Decade versus Zeo, Zeo versus Decade. And what a fucking clusterfuck of a special it is.
Normal high schooler Tokiwa Sogo, destined to become the Demon King Omazio, fought against his destiny and ended the world, creating one where that wouldn't happen. But then what happened to the Omazio from the timeline he erased?
He went on vacation.
No, that is, according to this special, which is entirely dedicated to answering that question. He got stuck between dimensions.
Wait. Yeah, okay, that's true. So are we gonna start talking about the decade part first? Because that's like a prequel.
Yes.
Right, okay. The Decade's House of Death comes first.
Yeah, basically what this is like 6 episodes, but there are 3 from Zeo's side and 3 from Decade. So basically what this is a versus movie. They just shot it as a mini-series. Right, like an old school versus movie, like the ones from like a couple years ago, where it's like they were just basically 2 different movies stuck together to make the length of one movie. Whereas like this at least kind of makes sense why these 2 link together. But yeah, it's an old school versus movie where it's, except because of the coronavirus, they had like very limited locations and like limited cast. Like, especially in the Decade part, where it's like, oh, yeah, you can tell they all just shot this in one house and in like 2 days or something. Or maybe like a day. Because like it's literally like every single location gets like 2 scenes and then they're done. Except the dining room, which gets like a couple different ones.
This feels like a 2-day shoot.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm more impressed by how good that fucking Decade thing is for being like, you can tell that like they have like no room to shoot anything. And it's like, oh, okay, so this is the dining room scene or location, this is the living room, there's the outside, there's the bathroom, and then the upstairs bedroom. And it's like, okay, we're gonna have these actors shoot their like 2 scenes in this location, done. Next part, 2 scenes, done. Right? Oh no, there's the kitchen too. Right? And it's like, I'm actually more impressed about how well they were able to make this seem like a decent enough movie, especially if you watch like all the parts. Like, what I did is I watched the Zeo parts first, and I was like, well, I guess this is going to be disconnected. Then I watched all the Decade. I'm like, shit, I should have watched the Decade ones first.
So I watched the Zeo side first, not knowing there was a Decade side.
Yeah, that's what I thought
like,
too.
It wasn't until I downloaded or until I grabbed part 3 that part 3 came with part 3 of Decade, and I'm like,
yeah.
Oh shit, there's more to this.
Right. Originally, I thought they were gonna be like, it's like 2 different things, but it's like, no, it like directly leads to the other thing.
Right, because the end of Decade, he's given the watch, and at the end of Zeo 1 is when that watch comes into play. Yeah,
there's that, but there's also like, what happens at the end of the Zeo 1 is like, oh, you have to figure out what the fuck happened at the end of the Decade one. It's like, yeah, the watch thing is one of the things, but like, what the fuck happens to Decade or potentially happens to Decade only makes sense if you watch like the ending of the Decade part, because you're like, what the fuck just happened, right?
Oh yeah, the whole, him getting stabbed.
Yeah. So that's the thing, is like, you kind of have to watch it like a versus movie, which means you have to watch like all 3 parts, and then you have to go to the next all 3 parts. You can't like switch one and one, which is how they were released, or at least like how they were released in the subs. And so I'm like, yeah, I can see why Drago's like, what the fuck is going on, right? Where it's like, maybe if you watched it like 1 and 1, 2 and 2, like they seemed so disjointed. But if you watch it like 1, 2, 3 Decade, 1, 2, 3 Zeo, it makes so much more sense.
Which is what I did, because you were like, "Oh, watch the Decade one first."
Yeah, it's like honestly like that's by pure chance because I watched the Zio one, and then I started the Decade one. I'm like, oh shit, this definitely comes before that. Like at least I didn't go 1 and 1 because holy shit, this would have been a clusterfuck if I did that.
Right, you wouldn't have been able to follow it.
And to be fair, it's already a clusterfuck.
Kinda. I mean, I feel like the Decade one is a lot more structured, whereas the Zio one is a lot more just like, hey, we've got a bunch of actors, let them act.
Okay, but at the end of the Decade one, you get the twist, and it's the stupidest thing ever.
Yeah, I mean it's a dumbass send off versus movie, so I'm like, fuck it, I'm fine with this. Oh, you mean the twist of like Amazio or the twist of like
the twist of
it's Yusuke?
The people of the other people.
No, I was like, that's fucking great because I'm like, oh, this is that shit of like, this is a fan project, which means it's gonna have the deepest cut references possible because you have to remember, okay, 5 writers. I mean, like the Sentai writer thing, that's the fan project. Brave and god damn, what the hell? Oja, that's the fan one, right? Like this is another one of those. Like Shinobi is probably the most normal one, and that's kind of almost like a backdoor pilot for a show, right? So I feel like what these are like, oh, you have to be in the know because fucking Narutaki shows up. Right? Right?
She does.
Yeah, and then like Decade basically whatever the fuck, like we'll get to that of like, you know how he's like, no, we'll get to that. I don't want to spoil it. If anybody hasn't seen it, go watch these because they're actually good. They're a little like, what the fuck is going on?
A lot what the fuck.
Yeah, but like just go for the ride because by the end it's like, oh, this almost sort of makes sense, right? I don't know. I actually really enjoyed this. Like honestly, the Decade stuff is freaking great. Like the Zio stuff is really good too, but it's not like it's a great story. It's just like holy fuck, like Sogo can act.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right, because
like the whole time I was thinking like, man, he's actually got range. Yeah. Why did we get the most boring version of him?
Right. I mean, especially because this is Decade and Zio, right? Both of whose main actors started off like super stiff in their shows, but like as they've gone on, like they've gotten so good. Like fucking Decade is so good in this, and I love how when he walks in, he like has a very specific way of talking. And you don't notice that until you get to this, because like you see all the different Zios and like all the different versions of that, but like Decade speaks in a very specific way, right? He delivers his dialogue in a very specific way. I'm like, oh, this is an actor who's got this character down like 100% now.
And
right?
Decade was the first series that I got into, and it's one of the first shows that I picked up on like his mannerisms and stuff like that. The longer this has gone, he hasn't deviated from them. Like his little, that weirdo point he does.
Right.
He's done it since day one.
I know,
and
right?
It's fantastic.
Yeah. There's so many little moments too, and honestly, like I feel like the whole reason they rolled in like Yusuke and Narutaki. They even throw like, Dian. Oh, well, Dian's suit makes an appearance. Well, no, his finisher makes it.
It's just his suit. It's the
Well, his finisher makes an appearance, but
yeah, the only aspect of him is of Kaito is recorded footage.
Yeah,
or recorded audio.
Like, recorded audio, yeah.
Yeah, and then well, they also reference that Decade's like, oh, Tsukatsu's like, Kaito would love this, where they're like looking for the treasure. I was like, oh, that's cute. And then
fucking Kivala.
Yeah, right? Like fucking somebody remembered that suit exists. I can't
believe they acknowledged her again.
Yeah, like the only way this could have been more Decade is they referenced like the grandpa, but I'm like, he's a villain. We don't need him.
Like, and like we get the whole Decade crew back together. Like, wow.
Right.
And then in about the proper format. You know, Yusuke and
Oh,
Decade
right.
both showed up for work.
Yep.
Kaito called it in, and
Called it
Kivala's physically
Kivala.
there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's it.
she's just there.
Which, I mean, to be fair, it's been years, so she was a model originally, so I don't know if she's still acting or whatnot, but it's fine. Like, I'm just fine with fucking Kivala existing because I'm like, yeah, she's the one who won the fucking decade battle. Like, okay, her fighting style is a little different because it's a little more cutesy, I feel like, than she was, and plus, where the fuck is her sword? But I'm like, who cares? They at least acknowledge that this character exists. You know, right? Like, at this point, I'm fine with just that. Also, like, well, a little bit in the decade section, but definitely in the Zio section. Did you notice, like, when it begins? Actually, we'll talk about that in the Zio section. But like, fuck, this was so good. So I mean, like, we're gonna spoil the hell out of this, so please go watch these. These are not like the most amazing things ever, but like they're actually surprisingly good. But so basically what happens is there's this weird crack between the dimensions where this mansion exists, and people keep getting drawn to it, and they basically have to do like one of those like survival visual novel game things where it's like, oh, you're all stuck in one place and you all got to do like mini games.
Yeah,
And then
I was gonna make a joke like, okay, so about Danganronpa.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And then the way they're announcing it, I'm like, oh, okay, so like it's just Danganronpa meets like Big Brother, right?
So, on a side note, for Kanamori, who does the voice, or who plays Natsumi,
Yep.
she most likely is filming stuff at the time this came out, or was being filmed, because she has episodes of Alibi Kazushi and a movie called Awake and Your Eyes Tell.
Oh, nice.
So she is still acting, but it seems like she's gotten into like more major.
I mean, good for her, man. Especially considering like it's been 10 years since Decade? No.
Yeah.
No. 10 years
11.
since Gokaiger. So Decade's even older than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been 12 years since Decade.
I mean, to be fair, like that's the time I started, but I watched like right before that when I saw Kiva right before Decade premiered, I think. And so like that's when Vashi started like, fuck, it's been a while, right?
Yeah. It has, because I started with Decade.
Yeah, I mean, like we started with like X8 with the podcast, and I keep thinking that was like 4 years ago. I'm like, no, it's like 5 now. Like, I don't even remember. Right? Like, how many writers ago was that?
X-Aid, Build, Zio, Zero,
Zero One Saber, 50, yeah. Right? And like, we just hit like 400 episodes of just the mainstream, like the main podcast, like a couple episodes ago. So I'm like, shit, we've been doing this for so long. Yo, I remember like oh fuck, like Sentai and Writer did like, oh, this is our 500th episode or 1000. No, it was like 500, right? Like a couple years ago. I'm like, fuck, we're like closing up onto that. Plus we have like more hours of audio than that, right? It's like fucking hell. Anyway, but this special. So basically its Decade shows up in the house because like people keep getting pulled in, and he figures out that it's like something's going on, and like one of the few people who could do this is like Zio, and he's like, well, like Amazio's gotten weaker, so he's probably just hiding in, or somehow he pieces that together, that he's like hiding between the dimensions. And so he just shows up to this house, but at this house we have like basically the Zio cast. Well, that's not true. They have like Sogo and the Time Jackers, and then you have Yusuke,
Bravo.
Bravo. Oh shit, Bravo's in this?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, the
who plays the
housewife.
house.
Oh,
housewife.
okay. Yeah, I was like, I wonder if I've seen this. Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah. Because I was like, wait, is that the donut shop owner? But I'm like, no, that's not. But it's like, oh, that makes more sense.
And then Sid is the Yakuza dude.
Yeah, Sid's the Yakuza dude, and like, I mean, it's fucking Sid. Nice, we see him. I mean, like he was his own hero, but like now he just shows up as a villain.
So from what I was able to look up is like every person that is there is supposed to reference somebody who has actually died.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't think of that, but that's interesting. Huh. Huh.
There's nobody listed for who played the lawyer.
Yeah, well, that's probably Kitawa, but then they just used the Time Jacker to fill his spot.
Yeah,
because like Kitawa is fucking super dead, right?
Right, yeah.
And then plus we've already like referenced that, and then like had him come back for a thing. Is like I doubt he's coming back for this, especially because like the only reason he came back last time was because he's got kids now, so he wants to be like, hey, look, kids, I used to be a Kamen Rider too, right? I doubt he's coming back for the freaking murder game version of Kamen Rider.
Again.
Yeah, again. That's a good point. That's a good point, right? When they had the whole like, you gotta play to survive. Like this is like, oh, this is just Ryuki with like more video game tropes.
I can't imagine if the actor for Oja like had kids. It was showing them like, yeah, I used to be a rider. Go. This is the part where I killed a guy.
That's true. Well, I mean, he's been like in other tokusatsu too, where he's like less villainous. But you're right. Like everything in Rider is like, oh, I'm like a super evil motherfucker.
Oh,
right?
This is what I did before I became a rider. Watch me eat this fish.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I was reference to. I mean, he's really good. Actually, like fucking everybody in there is really good. Also, they're all like past writer actors. So like, yeah, like you said, like Sid's there from Gaim. You got who's the other person from Gaim? I don't know. Yeah, sorry, Bravo. And then you got like Sogo, so he's obviously Zio. Then you got like the 3 Time Jackers who are actually in both parts, which is cool. And then you have the other 2 people who are the student girl and the old man with the money, and they're both from fucking Amazons.
Yeah, the student girl also plays Misa in the Zio part.
In the Zio part. Yeah, so she's basically in season 1 and 2, maybe in 3 also. But basically she's how should I explain? Okay, like she's basically the main female lead in Amazons. Let's go with that. Right, because she has like a couple different roles, but like she has a pretty prominent part in Amazons. Like, how should I explain? Like, imagine O's if Hina was like, "Hey, what the fuck are you doing? This fucked up shit with my brother," and then she decided to join the security forces in O's. Like, she became like, you know how like Gota becomes like Birth, right? Imagine if she joined that. That's basically sort of what she does in Amazons. Like she's really fucking good. Like she gets a pretty decent story arc, but like her acting range is freaking great, especially in these specials. But I fucking love the damn references of like, oh, when you figure out who the fuck everyone is. Ah, it's so good. I mean, like, some of them I don't know, but I'm like, I wonder if this is just a random reference to like, oh, well, this is just a random thing from another dimension, right? Or it's like, well, then Decade knew who one of those characters were, so I'm like, oh, is this like a Space Sheriff reference? Because I have no idea. Right? Um,
Who are you referring to?
He
you know,
moved,
when he turns
Space
into the
Ninja.
UFO. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was some kind of space sheriff reference. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like, I doubt this is a Sentai thing, but this definitely feels like it could fit into the Metal Heroes universe.
So yeah, the whole murder mystery aspect was really weird because it's like not only do you have them playing a game of death, but also one of them is a killer going around.
Yeah, I mean, that's weird, but that's a pretty common trope in murder games now. Because, I mean, like, especially from, like, it kind of harkens back to, like, Bloody Royale. Or, sorry, Battle Royale. Where it's like, oh, you have to kill each other, but then you have, like, actual people who are, like, super fine with just murdering the fuck out of everyone. Like, on top of everything. So it's like, that just kind of became a trope going after that. I mean, I guess it might have been one before, but I definitely remember after that it just became a trope even more. And then the best part is like, oh, right? Then like, yeah, you have like the elimination. I mean, like, do we want to talk about what the hell happens in how they get eliminated, or it's like, oh, the games happen? Like, do you want to talk about any
I
of
mean, we don't need to get into specifics, but like, the way that like the next food that they got to eat was like whatever that person who died talked about last.
Yeah, that was
And
fucking
then
great.
the lawyer
The lawyer
dies
is the
and he
best.
talks about poisoned dumplings. I thought that was gonna be the next game. Like, oh, here's a bunch of dumplings, but one of them is poisoned.
Yes, that's what I thought too. But like,
and instead you get, Sogo's dumbass trying to eat him.
well, he didn't
It's like,
know
no.
because he wasn't in the room.
No, but if you look at those, they looked not safe to eat.
Yeah, I mean, it's a writer show, so they have to kind of make it obvious. But it's like, yeah, I thought they were gonna Russian roulette it too, where it's like, oh, one of them is poisoned.
I'm kind of disappointed they didn't.
I know that would have been interesting, but I guess it would leave too much to chance. Whereas like every person who got killed is like specific because they're like building up a mystery of like, oh, who could have done it, right?
Right, because you have like, because you have the death game going on, and then you actually have a murderer running around too.
Yeah. And,
okay, but imagine if the murderer ate the poison dumpling.
right, exactly. And the thing is, like, how would you know that the murderer didn't die? It's like, I guess that would be convenient. You see, this is the problem, right? Like, if this was a mini series, we could have that. But with like 3 episodes only, it's like we don't have the time to have the murderer like flipping their shit that they might die. And then have to make deals and stuff. This is not Kaji, alright? Like Ultimate Gambler, like level of shit where it's like they have time to plot that out. I mean, it would have been fucking interesting as hell. But they just don't have the time. Especially because they have like so many red herrings of like who could have done it and stuff. So it's like, well, we already have these red herrings, so it's like if they die, like this mystery kind of falls apart.
Because to be fair, have all of us sitting here, who thought it was Yusuke?
Yeah, see, at first I was like, it can't be him, but I'm like, everybody else is sort of in the clear. So I did call it was probably him before Decade said it, but it's like, it took me a while, right?
The one time I suspected it was him was when he killed the lawyer and he was the first one at the scene. Because that's when I went, huh, maybe it was him. And then I quickly dismissed that, like, no, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
The reason I dismissed it is because I didn't chalk it up to being another Yusuke, because Decade and Yusuke talk to each other.
Yeah, like, that's what I was thinking too, because he knows him, and I was like, that's weird. But it could be either like they had similar interactions, or it could be that like Kusaka just goes from world to world and he knows another Yusuke.
I mean, to be fair, it is what he do.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where it made me a little bit like sad a Decade, and it's like, oh man, this is kind of fucked up that like it doesn't matter where, like every day is kind of different for him because he just walks in and like more fucked up shit happens to him like constantly. Right? And I'm like, oh, that's a little sad. But then I'm like, wait, no, that's kind of bullshit, because by the end of Decade, he figured out how to control his powers and he can go to the world he wants now. because he moves writers to positions he wants in the movies and stuff at the end. So I'm like, no, he chooses to fucking do this.
Yeah, no, he's bored.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I was like, I mean, in like the Zio stuff, I was like, oh, that's a little sad. But I'm like, yeah, at some point he's just doing this because he's bored.
I mean, to be fair, it's how his power started in the first place. He was bored of being
Yeah, he
in
was
the house.
born with it, right? So it's not.
Yeah, and then but he was bored being in the house.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, then again, like, I guess at this point he's kind of just become like the protector of.
The
That's
multiverse.
not true. He's not the protector. He's just the investigator. So like, he's
Right.
not. He's less of the doctor and more just like, yeah, I like to travel places. Right, like
Like-
he doesn't, he's not really protecting the earth too much. It's more just like, yeah, I'm just hopping around seeing what the fuck is going on.
And like all these people are dying around him, and everyone else is and such, and he's unfazed. It's like he's seen too many bodies at this point.
Well, I mean, you have to remember he's from like the world he was originally from was like most of humanity was fucking dead. Like
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
that's-
he's seen this too many times.
yeah, and you can tell like how he doesn't like getting close to people now or at all. It's like, I mean, Deku was kind of always a dick, but now it's more just like, yeah, he's seen too many people to die to get close to them. It's also kind of like a Doctor Who thing where it's like, yeah, he'll help you out, but like he's not gonna be your friend because like any moment now, any of you could drop dead, right? Like doesn't matter how hard he tries, someone's gonna die, and he's gonna still have to solve the mystery or whatever, right? So it's a little bit
And
sad.
they've already proven how his existence works, anyways.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
Because all it takes is somebody to remember him, and he exists again.
yeah, kind of. He's kind of like that weird, like, unlike Deno, which is like he's the singularity point, therefore time does not affect him. He's the other thing is like, oh, as long as somebody remembers him, because his memory exists, therefore he's like a weird, like,
He's like a reverse singularity.
yeah, it's basically like, well, how could you have memories of a person who doesn't exist, right? So it's like, therefore, for the universe to be right, I must exist. So I guess that's like one way.
It breaks your brain.
Yeah, I guess that's like one way. If we wanted to have more decade after these specials, we could.
Which was left that open anyways.
Yeah, so I thought he was talking about the other Zio, but I think, yeah, you're right. He was more talking about.
Well, because he says it about the time jackers. Like we'll see each. Time is a whirlpool. Maybe we'll run into each other. And he specifically mentions Tsukasa.
Yeah.
So like they did a good job for as cheap as it was for a send off, but also left that door open if he decides he wants to live in Toei's parking lot again.
Yeah, well, that's the thing I was saying. Like, didn't he say like he's never gonna be Decade again? And then he showed up for this, and then they made that ending. I'm like, oh, good, you get to have your cake and eat it too with this bullshit ending. With like, oh right, like even if he doesn't normally come back like right away, or he can come back whatever, and he could just say timey-wimey bullshit because like one of the other time jackers kind of takes it. And then they're like, don't worry, Ben, we're time jackers. We'll just run into him whenever.
Yeah, like Erd straight up dies.
Well, that's spoilers for the next part. But yes.
And Nora goes, well, what about him? And Shorts literally just shrugs it off like, yeah, time.
Right? It's so
we'll meet him
good.
in the gap of time again.
Yeah. And then
we're not worried about the continuity. We're the villains.
that's true. Yeah, I was just thinking of like, oh, okay, so this is just like reverse Flash levels of logic. It's like, don't worry about it, I'll figure out somewhere to come back. Right? Right, like honestly this made me feel more for Decade than anything, where it's like maybe because I saw the Zio part first, so I saw how it ends for him, and then I watched all the Decade shit. I'm like, oh shit, they fucking did it. Right? They brought everyone back and they did it. We'll talk about what they did in the next part.
Can we talk about the best scene
Yeah.
from Decade's House of Death?
Okay. Let's hear.
So first
Eat.
off,
Eat.
oh
The
yeah,
angriest fucking eating.
when Decade
Just
shoves
shoves
the
it.
food into the lawyer's mouth, it's like, shut up and eat, and the guy just angrily chews it.
Right? How he's like, I love how he like rationalizes too.
I'm pissed off, but this is good.
Yeah. Well,
hate
I meant
the
how
fact-
Decade rationalizes it is like, this is a gift from that person. Don't waste it.
Yeah, this is their final gift.
Right, so it's like one of those things where it's like Decade is an asshole. Like, he's way more of an asshole than Sogo is. But like at this point, like, he's not a villain. Like, he's just still a little rough around the edges, but like you can tell he cares about people a lot more now. Right, he's still
Like,
Decade, but he's a better Decade.
Like seeing Decade grow over the last decade of him living in the parking lot has been fantastic.
Yeah. Also,
but-
like, watching this, it also reminded me, because of what happens at the end of this, is like, oh yeah, no, they are like, Zio is literally just fucking Decade again.
Yes.
Where it's like,
This
oh,
was
he's
the
from
passing
a
the torch.
yeah, but it's like literally from a world that's fucked up. He's kind of the ruler of it, but he doesn't want to be, so he's the new savior. He's got everybody else's power, but like even more powers. So it's like, yeah, literally there's no reason for Decade to exist because there's somebody to carry the torch now. It's like, I was not
Decade
expecting it
season
to be this, like, I mean, I guess we were calling it when this show began, but it's like it didn't feel earned early on, but now I can see, like, okay, I can see Tsukasa passing the torch to Sogo now because they've grown so much as actors that you can kind of feel that now.
Like me calling it Decade Season 2 was for an entirely different reason. Is because once Decade showed up, it got real, and it was a better show for it. So that's why I kept calling it Decade Season 2. But yes, power-wise, outside of the whole jumping to an alternate reality thing, yeah, he's fucking Decade.
So,
Right.
Did either of you expect this to not be our Sogo?
I didn't think it was him, but that's because I watched the other three-parter first. So I was like, I'm like, he's got a basketball, and Sogo doesn't do basketball.
I guess I should guess I'm the only one that did watch this one first. Yeah, like, I was confused at first because it's like, wait, Sogo doesn't play basketball. What is this? But like, for it to just not only not be him, but for this Sogo to be a robot.
Yeah, I love the reveals, man.
That's where the whole thing got stupid hilarious.
No, I fucking love this. I love the axe that he gets thrown into his arm. He falls down, he comes back, no scratch, nothing. He's a fucking robot. Deal with it. It's so fucking
and this
good.
person that died didn't actually die because they're an alien. And this person that died was already dead all along.
I fucking love that. I love how Yusuke's flipping his shit the whole time as the reveals go on.
It's like, this doesn't make any sense.
I'm disappointed that they didn't do it for everybody.
I
that's
choose
true.
to believe that either the lawyer or the Yakuza was actually a man.
Oh, lawyer. Because if they would have, I would have wanted the Yakuza dude to be a ghost and literally just look at the camera and go, "I got crushed to death."
Well, I mean, my thing.
That's how Sid died.
Yeah, that's true. I was gonna be like, oh, it should be the lawyer because then you get the Kitawa thing, but the Yakuza dude is the first one to die, so I'm like, well, if you wanted him to be the monster, then it'd be like the perfect cover. It's like, well, I got taken out first, I can't be the monster. And then to sow distrust between everyone, but he's not also the guy running the mask shit. right? Like if Sid was also the guy pretending to be behind the mask, and that was just the first time was just a video recording, it would work. But they were not going for that twist, so I'm like, all right, whatever. He's just an idiot. And then the housewife is just a housewife. I guess that makes sense, because like she seems like the most normal like person who just got plucked out of nowhere, whereas the Yakuza dude could have been from like any time, any dimension. So I was like, well, he's gotta go. We just need an asshole character.
We need someone to die first so that the others know how serious this.
Yeah, it's true. And then like
that nobody is going to be attached to.
Right, exactly. And then like the old man, we couldn't kill because we had to show that like the like high school girl character is really kind and nice. And so it's like, well, he exists for a reason to show everybody else's character. That's why he has to die like second or something. No, he gets killed by the murderer, right?
Yeah,
he's the first victim. So it's like, yeah, they both have the least character, but they both kind of serve their purpose. They're only there for plot reasons. These two-parters have problems where it's like, oh, nice show. It's like, first, you're either killing like transgender characters or just another joke with like, oh look, haha, man in a dress thing, or you're killing like gay characters, or you're just like murdering freaking like minorities. And I'm like, god damn it, writer, every once in a while would you knock this shit off? But it's like, so it's got problems, but it's not like the worst thing ever. But like, yeah, I kind of get why like some people are annoyed at this, like especially the Zio part, where it's like, okay, this is a death game, so like everybody was gonna pretty much die, so I kind of let it slide a little bit more. Whereas the Zio one is like, okay, you're just a fucking asshole, Gates. Right?
Yeah, there was no excuse for that.
I mean, I get it, he's just a dude, bro, but it's like, god damn it, did we need that? Like, honestly, he's like the worst actor.
We didn't need that. It added nothing.
Right, I mean, like, he's also the worst, like, he's the most stiff acting in that part, too. Where, like, at least nobody else was going along with that shit. Because everybody is like, yeah, whatever, man. It's fine. Who cares? Right, like, they are totally chill. I mean, yeah, they do make a joke at Ur's expense.
Like, I do like the fact that Oro was the one who told here, yeah, what the fuck ever, dude. Just go. Do what you want.
Yeah, I mean, Aura is honestly like, Aura is fucking great, which is the sad part is like Zio didn't let her do too much, like the show. Like every time in movies and stuff, you see her get like little moments, and you're like, fuck, this character is great. Why didn't we get like more and Aura? They're fucking amazing. Right? Like their dynamic is so good. I also love like, okay, yeah, Aura is like maximum troll. Like, doesn't matter which version of reality it is. Yeah, like that's just her personality, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. She plays it so well. I'll let it slide. It's so good. Like, yeah, she's being a pain in the ass, like on purpose. But like, she's not like super mean. She's just doing it because she knows this is gonna crash and burn, and it's gonna be hilarious, right? But that's stuff for the next part.
Well, like, what else is there to say about the decade part? I feel like we can move on.
Like, did you expect the fucking weapons fight? Right, like I was not expecting that, but like I'm like, all right, this is a V cinema. There's gonna be some fucking blood.
Kind of expecting it. Like I wasn't expecting the blood, but like, yeah.
Yeah, I actually did not expect like Decade getting stabbed. In that, I was like, wow.
That's that was surprising. It's like, whoa.
And then so was, Urge, let's, spray him out in the blood.
Yeah, that's the weirdest one too, because like it's like, oh, it's so over the top.
Like this is one of the specials, like, there's something about the Rider Time specials that they just go ape shit with it. Like, don't get me wrong, the V Cinema movies have always gone overkill with, the
blood. Oh, it's like it's not on TV. We must put blood. Yeah.
Like the worst offender, I feel, is still the Oja scene in the Brave movie.
Shoving his face into glass.
into broken light bulbs and shit. Like,
That's pretty bad. I mean, like in the Snipe special, like the previous Emu character, basically he just like
Wait,
spits up blood.
No, the Rider Time Ryuki special where he stabs the
Well, that's
guy
what I'm
and
saying.
then uses the knife to eat his steak.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is like we have the normal V Cinema stuff, and yeah, that's bloody and bad. It's like, but then we have the Rider Time specials, and it's like over the top overkill.
It's like,
Yeah,
man,
that's true.
Zio could have been good.
Like,
Yeah,
go through this, and you're like,
The
you
Tesco
just
and
want to make another Amazon. Level
not
of
even,
series,
man.
don't you?
Fucking Amazon's is subtle. They don't like overdo it with the blood after the first couple episodes. Like actually,
But it's
Amazon
that
turns
first-
it down until it only does it in like the first couple episodes of the first season and then the finales, because like shit's really fucking hitting the fan in those finales. Or the movie where it's like, well, I mean, there's like a dozen guys coming at you, right? Like it's the way the Amazon writers fight is a lot more like original Amazons, where it's like it's a lot more brutal and like just taking limbs off. So it's like there's blood everywhere, but like at least theirs it makes sense, right? Whereas here it's like, oh, you're just going over the top. I do fucking love all the outfits though. Like in this, but like especially the second part. But like everybody so good. I do like how like everybody has different personalities and stuff, which was so well done. The fucking like Aura just running around with a gun. Or did she have the
No, had the gun.
Oh yeah. And then she had the sword, right? She's like, "Oh, I'm just messing with you."
She's sneaking up behind him with it, and then he turns around and points and like, "Say that to my gun."
I know, right? I'm like, you're so red herring. Like at that point, I'm like, yeah, you're not the killer, right? You are like absolute troll, though. I'm like, oh my god. But I do love that about her character, is like if she can portray like, yeah, this character who's not a nice person, but she's not evil. Like she does that so well. Actually, I think like the most interesting thing is like Schwartz, because Schwartz gets to be the funny guy. Like he's doing the Gentoku thing of like, oh look, my hair is longer and I've got a beard, so I'm the comedy man now.
I was literally thinking that like this is just Gentoku.
Right, except more facial expressions, and like he's being nice, and it actually works really well for these. Where it's like everybody in the specials, both of these, I guess like 6 parts, acts so damn well. Like the acting is really fucking good.
But then you've got teacher Schwartz giving the shitty love advice, and it's like, you know what? I should expect this from Schwartz.
Yeah. Do you want to move on to that one, or do you want to finish up this part? So basically at the end of this part, we figure out the monster that's killing everyone, Mirror Ryuki, is just Omazio sending it out. And it's like, well, I guess that was kind of given because that's what Decade said. And then they go, like Decade gets stabbed, and then they still end up going to the mirror world where like the Zio stuff takes place. Like it's in that like weird mirror dimension that Omazio created. They do mention that like
dimensional gap.
Yeah, I mean Narataki shows up and you figure out he's the guy who's like running the thing, and he's basically Herald.
He's tired of it.
Yeah, he's tired of it. He's basically, instead of Herald of Galactus, he's like Herald of Omazio, and he's just fucking done with this shit.
Decade, can you just do what you do best?
Right. I do love that moment where it's like, yeah, I fucking hate you, but I'm sick of this shit. Just fucking end this. And then he like sits down like super tired or / dropping dead. It's another one of those things is like, okay,
I thought it was super tired.
Yeah, I thought he was super tired too, but like they also, the way they're doing it, it's more like, okay, we might never see Narataki again. So maybe he got tired, or maybe he just dropped dead there.
Considering what happens next, I did not expect to see Narataki again.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like the Decade part definitely wrapped up that show, because you get to see, like, you know, Kivala, Yusuke, Kuga, like the normal one from Decade show up. Like, Dien's the only one who doesn't show up, but his finisher does. Oh no, that's
I
in
mean,
the
the
second
suit
part.
does.
Suit does,
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
and
with
it's
like
just recorded audio.
Makes sense.
Um, am I the only one who was disappointed that Narataki didn't say "Damn you, Decade"?
Um,
no.
I
I mean,
kind
like,
of
no, I'm not
was,
disappointed.
but like I
I
feel like that was Narutaki's whole plan.
oh
Is
yeah,
that
it was absolutely his plan because he got tired of it, so he sent Decade to show up and fix shit, so he didn't have to do this anymore.
Yeah, I love their like dynamic now, where it's like they're not pure evil or hero or villain. They're kind of more like the Doctor and the Master, where it's like, yeah, they don't like each other, but like if it comes to it, they will team up.
But like, I would have been okay with like a "Damn you, Decade" thing. Considering the last time he showed up, he said, "Damn you, Decade, Kamen Riders are awesome."
Oh yeah, that's true. It's been a while. Um, yeah, but that was so cool, man. Honestly, just having everything as like this was a good wrap up for the most part for all the decade stuff.
Shut up, Rye.
But then we go into the mirror world and all the Zeo stuff starts. And
Right.
so Zeo movie time. What the hell? Oh,
So,
actually, what did you guys think of the decade one before we do that?
I thought it was pretty good. And then the ending was just batshit
Bonkers.
crazy. Like, what the fuck is happening here?
Like
What does
the
this have to
first,
do with anything?
so I watched the first episode by myself, and I watched the second and third with Rye. And even rewatching it, knowing it was going to happen, I was still confused by when Decade showed up why there was Spanish guitar. Like that was really weird. Which is saying something in a series in a 6 episode series of nothing but weirdness. But it was really, really well done. I was disappointed that in both parts, Decade doesn't show up until the very end of both of the first episode of each one.
Yeah, but I feel like they kind of see the problem with Decade is like he's too strong of a character. Like if he shows up, shit's gonna go real fucked up for your plans. So like he's too strong. If you want to set the setting up, you kind of don't want Decade. Like you want him to walk in right at the end because like the early part of the episode is just set up for what the hell did Decade walk into. But I do agree. Like yeah, could have used a little more Decade, but I'm like again
for a special that was literally designed to be Decade and Zeo. The fact that there's more Zeo than Decade, I'm disappointed.
I know, but I'm
But
like,
that's a personal thing for me because of my love for Decade.
Yeah, that's fair.
I very much prefer Decade over Zeo.
Yeah, I was gonna say my counter argument too is Decade took over Zeo's show.
Yeah,
so,
he did. That's
so
fair. That's fair. Let him take over the movie. Let Zeo take over
let him get his crossover, right? But yeah, I do agree. Like, I wish there was more Decade. I feel like if we had more Decade, like the first part would just fall apart even faster. Right, so like that's why you can't have him because like Tsukasa is not a guy who like sits around and lets shit happen, right? Like he would not be looking for shit for the most part. Like he would have been like ready to fucking break shit down like after the first round,
right?
Like
that or jump on a jeep and run somebody down.
Yeah, I was gonna say like he's basically like the Ninth Doctor when he gets goes to the future and he gets stuck in like future Big Brother, and he's like, "Fuck this shit, I'm getting out of here.
I'm gonna break this shit." Something's up.
Yeah, it honestly I feel like it was pretty good, but it works better if you combine both of them. Whereas like I feel like the Zeo one is just fun enough by itself. The Decade one is like it's interesting, but it definitely needs the second part to make it more important because otherwise it feels like you could skip it, but you actually can't skip it because of what happens at the end of that. Anyway, 7 Zeos. Initial thoughts.
Okay, so all the different Sogos. Oh god, I want to like you get this one badass Soga. It's like, oh, he's class president and he just rides his motorcycle. Like,
Oh, you
I
mean
want to know his story.
90s Sogo who just
Like, like all the other Sogos have more personality than the one we got.
kind of, but like the one we got does. Well, okay, I'll get to that moment, but like it's interesting. But you're right. Like I really like that one too.
Like I liked that one and the Gentaro one. Yes, that's what I'm
the
calling
asshole Gentaro one who like just beats up.
The true what Gentaro truly would have been.
Truly would have been if they didn't do the friendship thing, right? Yeah.
The bad boy.
I loved seeing him chase people down the hall. Like, you're gonna vote for me, right? You're gonna vote for me, right?
Beats the shit out of them. I was like, yeah, you better.
And he thoroughly kicks their asses too.
Dude, yeah, I know, right? Honestly, I fucking love how good like Sogo's actor is now, because like all the Sogos feel so different.
Right. Like, even when you get the twist in the second part, like it was easy to tell if you're paying attention, if you pay attention enough to like some of his more facial tics and stuff like that, that he was portraying this one as this one.
Yeah.
And like at the very beginning, like it shows you a glimpse of some of the different Soga. Like one of them, I straight up thought was a different person until I saw his face.
Right.
That's how good of an actor he was.
It's true, right? Like when they save everyone. Yeah.
Right.
When he shows up in the gray suit and the glasses, I'm like, Banjo, what are you doing here?
I thought that it was the other one, the one with the glasses. I thought that was like Acorn from Gaim.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like I thought it was Banjo from Build, but Acorn also, right? Like he seems so different.
But then he turns his face towards the camera, and I was like, "Wait, that's actually Sogo."
I know, right? Like honestly, it's so fucking good. Like he does so many parts. Also, I fucking love whoever did like the hairstyling because they all have different hair, right? And it's so well done. It doesn't feel like a wig. I mean, plus like the costumes and the acting, it's like holy shit, man. Like Sogo was never a bad actor. He was a little more simple, like early in the special where it's like he's just so one note, and that's the same problem early as Yo until he starts like getting more comfortable allowing them to act. But like he was never this fucking good. Now you actually see his range, which is like I think this is like, oh, what is this special? This is like Sogo's resume. It's like, yeah, I can pretty much do anything. Hire me, right?
This would be his. That'd be the easy way to do it.
I mean, like Decade sort of has that in his show, but I feel like this is much better than when like Decade was pretending to be other people, because like Decade only pretended for like half a second before he's like, fuck this, I'm just going back to being me. Whereas like the different Sogos actually feel like different people. Well, except for two of them who are like barely characters. There's the one with the teddy bear who's like, it's just Watru, but even more timid. Right?
Yeah.
I was like, well, he's cute, but he doesn't really do anything. And then there's the K-pop one that Decade runs down. Oh man, I was like, poor guy. Actually, when he's fighting and he's like scared, but he's still ready to go, I'm like, okay, that immediately put so much more character into this character. Like, good job, suit actor. Right?
Speaking of suit actor,
yeah.
Am I the only one who thought Decade fought weird this special?
I don't know. I mean, maybe I honestly felt like he fought like so well. Like you could feel that like he's the experienced fighter, because like he could counter everything, and it's just like totally Decade style where it's like I
meant like say this Decade versus the Decade that was in the Zio series. Or his
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
like he's
100% it's a different guy.
Oh yeah, that's true. I mean, I also feel like in this, it's like, oh, you can say he's injured or whatever, but it's like it still feels like he's so like he gets his ass kicked way too easily by Omazio.
Yeah.
Even
Like
with his power up, I'm like, that doesn't feel like Decade. That just feels like the plot says Decade loses and he loses.
right.
Whereas like everything in the
terms
beginning
of-
is like, yeah, he doesn't move like that, but again, different suit
Doesn't-
actor.
like he doesn't move the same, but at the same time, he still. And this is where his suit actor did a great job of encasing what Decade was. That no, I'm going to be very stiff and deliberate in my movement.
Yeah, I mean, I do
Decade
agree.
always had that.
Right, where it's like exactly like in all the fights, like you feel like he knows exactly what's going on because this is basically what he does on a daily basis: run into a world and some writer wants to kick his ass.
But the worst aspect I felt of it was during the final fight, where it just seems like that suit was just so unwieldy.
Oh yeah, that thing is horrible. I fucking hate
Like,
it. Okay,
why was 0-1 in there anyways?
yeah, I don't know, man. I think it's just because
Questions we will never get an answer to.
I think it's just because they needed to complete the K-Tech 2. Right? They need enough writers for that, but I'm like, yeah, that's kind of bullshit. Maybe it's because Zio had a crossover with 01, so therefore those worlds are linked somehow, therefore they can kind of count it as one.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's bullshit. I do love how like the K-Tech is just called K-Tech 21.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, that just means if he needs another upgrade in 10 years, they'll just call it the next model number. I'm like, that's fucking great.
K-Touch 31.
Right, exactly. They don't have to keep doing the shit of like, oh no, it's like the Ultra K-Touch or the Omega K-Touch or the blah blah. It's whatever. It's just a model number. Here you go.
It's got a software update.
Yeah, right? It's so good. I'm like, that's a fucking genius way of doing it. So from one clever decision to one terrible decision, that suit is hideous. Like honestly, I can kind of stand the chest plate, but like that cape, okay, it's not as terrible as we saw in the stills, but Jesus Christ, it's still fucking garbage.
And his helmet. Jesus Christ.
Oh, it's pretty bad, but I take that helmet over the fucking saber on like Decade
absolutely.
form face. Like that is just pure garbage.
Yeah, I know that this was made before Saber got his powered up form, but it was still disappointing that like it was just base form Saber's face on there when the whole point of the Decade suit is the powered up form.
Right, exactly. And like especially because it's like, okay, the worst part is it's like, oh no, this is a thing I can't use and we need something beyond the power I have. Here you go, use it. So it's like even beyond Decade's power and it's just base form Saber. I'm like, base form Saber is not strong. It has one ability and he's learning it now. He's learning it now, which is it can separate people. I'm like, okay, are they gonna do the clever thing where they use like Saber's separating slash and then they'll just separate Zio's power and the kid? I'm like, alright, that could be smart. But no, they're like, oh yeah, Saber wins. I'm like, fuck off, man.
The only implication I can give is that because that form is based off of Saber, and Saber's true power is really strong, that's what he was using. A power that even Saber himself has not unlocked yet.
I guess, but I'm like, I fucking hate it. Like, I would have been fine with if you're like, okay, I'm gonna use 01 to counter this. I'm like, fine, it's an AI.
Okay.
Like, the Arc versus Omazio. Let's go. You know? I'm fine with that.
I would love a movie where we got the Arc versus Omazio.
Right? Because it's like pure prediction versus all the power.
I would trade Gaze Majesty for that.
Who would not? Who would throw Gates Majesty under the bus for anything?
I would trade Gates Majesty and all of Zio, excluding anything with Waz. Waz still has to exist, for that movie. Let Waz be the announcer for that entire movie.
Dude, that'd be great. I'm so glad they at least added Waz. Like, he does nothing in this, but they're like, this actor is too good. We have to put him in. Right?
I love the fact that half of what he does is the same thing he has done since day one, and that's talk to us.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't do any announcing, but whatever. I feel like there's probably one more movie with Zio, but I guess like Zio's gonna be in a new decade now, so he'll just keep showing up if they ever need a crossover guy. And considering how fucking good Sogo is at acting, I'm like, yeah, I'm fine with that. Gates can fuck right off because like he does nothing. His acting has gotten stiffer. I mean, maybe it's because it's this character, but I'm like, it's maybe because he's not just playing crazy angry guy. Now he's just crazy jock bro, and I'm like, fuck that. You're somehow worse, right?
Okay.
Gates has done nothing but get worse since Zio began.
That's true. Well, that's not true. He in the White Waz arc, he was okay.
I was gonna say after the White Waz arc.
Yeah, like he started out okay, proper character motivation and responses and all that, and then the White Waz happened. It's like, okay, yes,
that was the height of his character.
And then he's just done nothing but circle the drain. He's literally there. To me, he's the new Beast.
No, fuck you. Beast actually got good character arcs by the end. He became like a mentor.
Right. I just mean in the aspect of he's now the character everybody hates.
People hated
because he
Beast?
puts mayonnaise.
Oh,
yeah, people hated Beast.
His gimmick was okay. Japanese mayonnaise is a different thing, but
I'm not even at. God damn it!
God damn it! But
anyways,
yeah,
it's a second time.
I don't know. I like Beast. Beast is fun, but you know who didn't get screwed over in this fucking special? Tsukiyomi. Tsukiyomi was so fucking good.
Oh right, she was there.
Dude, no, she was not just there. She was doing her own thing, and like you realize like how good her fucking suit is. Like, okay, maybe her cape is not the greatest, but I'm like, you know what? I'd fucking take a whole movie with Tsukiyomi than anything with Gates at this point. Like, fuck off.
Yeah, we didn't need Gaze.
I just don't ever want to watch her transform again.
Why?
Like in terms of physical stiffness, she is literally the stiffest person I've ever seen transform.
I mean,
and she's like every time, like, and both times she transforms, like, I get the whole idea behind it and all that. It's like, but like even the first time, like, she was super shaky when she did her little posing.
Well, I mean, to be fair, she's under attack, and like, I guess it's like trying to imply she's not really used to this. But right, I get what you mean. She doesn't have the presence.
She's transformed like 3 times before.
Right.
Yeah, it's also one of those things where it's like it's actually a lot harder than it looks to make it look dynamic on screen, which is one of those things where it's like if you see the behind the scenes of like the Wizard in Magic Land movie, where it shows like was it Magic Land or was it another one where it's like Evil's Koyomi shows up and like Wizard or like Haruto has to teach her how to do the henshin stuff, and like you see her behind the scenes where he's like giving her pointers and everything. And I was like, that's really cute and cool. But it's like, yeah, it's one of those things like if you don't keep doing this thing, it looks stiff as hell.
You're not gonna get better. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's like the Saber ones, like they're terrible. If you fucking go in the early episodes, they're not great. Like at all.
Oh no, because like it's bad because in the old one, in the first couple of episodes of Saber, you literally have the guy go to put him down, to put him in the.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's fucking unreal. Like I'm kind of amazed how well Eiji got at doing like the O's ones, because like those are fucking hard to do on the fly, right?
Okay, I gotta get going because it's getting late for me.
So, I just want to say, like in the end, Tsukiyomi only had 2 jobs this movie, and she fucked up one of them. Because
I mean, it's not
throughout
her fault.
throughout the entirety of Zio, she had 2 jobs: don't die, and don't feed the bad guys.
Well, to be fair, she this is not normal Tsukiyomi, right?
No, this is normal Tsukiyomi.
No, I mean like their memories kind of got a little bit reset and stuff.
Yeah, because they always do.
Yeah, so I don't know.
But yeah,
Right.
her whole job, don't die and don't, help the bad guys to power.
I mean, there was no way of knowing. Like, she didn't know.
I know. I'm
Like,
just mad that they
here's
gave her
here's
that
the thing,
role.
right? Like, if we're gonna be like, oh, like this is Tsukiyomi's fuck up versus everything that Gates did, like Gates is fucking next to
Gates
useless,
fucked up
and he
more.
has a writer belt, right? Like, how many people died and he did nothing? He was in like 2 fights, and Zio was already taking care of it.
All right. Oh yeah, you two can keep talking about this, but I gotta go later.
Later.
But like, this wasn't terrible. Like Tsukiyomi wasn't like the worst thing about this show, which is an amazing accomplishment for her.
Yeah, I mean,
Because-
it's not her fault, but like, I don't know. I honestly thought that like the Tsukiyomi stuff was great, or maybe I just got so like I liked her fighting and stuff. I mean, like I kind of miss her long hair, but I mean, like it was probably a wig, but it's fine. Like I don't hate the short hair or anything. It's fine. It's just you so get used to seeing one hairstyle, and then
Right.
suddenly it's different. Like okay, that's a little weird, but
Like that's the thing I'll give Tsukasa's actor a lot of credit for, of being able to get his hair back to how it should be without putting on a wig.
oh yeah, especially after Grammy Tsukasa from like the Guy movie or whatever. Like it's never
Right.
been that bad.
Like especially given the fact of the last character he did, which was for theater, which was whitened all over the fucking place.
Oh shit.
Which he still had when COVID hit. 'Cause
Oh,
had it
yeah, he did,
during that
you're right.
COVID video.
Yeah, he did. That was interesting.
But he's one of the few actors who, in terms of his notability, what he's really noticed for, he was well aware of the fact that that was Decade.
Yeah, that's kind
Like
of cool.
he went through dramatic lengths to at least be able to pull off that character at the drop of a hat.
I mean, that's kind of his calling card now. So I guess it's sort of
Right.
it's sort of like the Jackie Chan thing of like, oh, why has he had like the same hair for like 30 plus years? It's because like that's just
That's
his
what everybody
character.
knows.
It like it
That's what he
helps it, like show off his like action scenes and stuff. Like it's part of his character's charm, right? Yeah, some actors are sort of just like that. Whatever. Anyway, yeah,
Like,
he's great.
this-
Tsukiyomi is
like-
good. Gates is a
The best,
kind of a piece of shit in this.
the best thing I like about this special is Decade's plan. Because Decade has the best plan, and it is very much a Decade plan.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like fuck this. I'm
How-
done. Escalate.
I'm gonna fucking murder all of you until I get the right one. Have fun.
Yeah,
Line
right?
up.
Yeah, I'm like, hey man, I'm hurt. I don't give a fuck. Right? Like he
No, right.
normally doesn't give a like. He's barely giving a fuck. Normally, at this point, he's like 0 fucks to give. Right?
Oh, your name's Sogo? Time to die.
Time to die. Right? Like
Shit, you weren't the right one. Let's find the next one.
yeah. Dude, like also like the students dying. Holy fuck, that was brutal.
I said, like I told, because you saw what I put in the chat when I watched the first.
Yeah, it's fucking insane, right?
episode.
Oh, you thought it was like the worms. At first, I'm like, wait, are these like the Gaim? Are we in Helheim?
Yeah, so I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was wrong when I first watched it, because and even going back, it literally took me until like the second episode with Rye to go, wait, no, these aren't the worms, these are the Invis.
Yeah, so are they the Invis? Because I'm
Yeah,
like,
they're the elementary Invis from Gaim.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because I'm like, Zio doesn't have these guys, does it? But like they work so well, so I'm like, okay, did like Omazio just piss off to like Helheim world? But I guess maybe this is like one of those other dimensions that Helheim invaded or something, or alternate reality.
This is
But
the
it's just the monsters. It's fine.
or this is just the explanation of, hey, look, we have just generic monster.
Yeah,
Because
I guess it
there
makes
for a
sense
while,
because
there
Zio doesn't
there
have
for a
grunts,
while,
right?
right? And there for a while with Decade, the worms were the one they used.
Yeah, that's true.
Like for a lot of the extra like special movies and stuff like that, it was just here's a bunch of worms, have fun.
Right. And then if you need like a bigger sword, then you get like mirror monsters or shit like that.
Or because it's Decade, shocker.
Shocker, yeah. I mean, I'm actually kind of impressed that there hasn't been any shocker shit for like a
I
while now. And
I
I'm
am
like,
very amazed
Yeah.
that something got made with Decade that didn't have shocker attached to it in some fashion.
I mean, that's been happening for a little while, but you're right. It's more like a passing of the torch, so it's more of a Zio thing. So I guess it makes sense,
Like,
but you're right. Like
but at the same
it's
time,
nice not having shocker around.
but at the same time, I would not have been disappointed if, like, on the door of Tsukasa's Jeep, it had the shocker logo.
Oh yeah, that would have been good.
Like,
I mean, hell, if like Narataki was wearing like a shocker mask or something, it would have been funny too. But I guess
right.
that would have been like too much like, oh, this is another shocker bullshit plot. So I guess they didn't do it. But you're right, it would have been fine for the Jeep for sure.
Like there's routes that this series or this sixth set of episodes could have done a lot better to make this a lot better. It was enjoyable. It's like, but there's a lot of this that was just a giant what the fuck am I watching?
Yeah, I feel like the way this was shot definitely limited this a lot because it's like, okay, like the decade stuff is shot in one house. It's that house that's in like Amazon's. It's also in like Kabuto, I think. It's that house that like decade or not decade, Kabuto and Drake have their like cooking contest thing when they're like pretending to be chefs, I think. Like that's as far back as I remember this thing showing up. And it's been in a couple other things after that.
Right. And then
Like they're definitely not on a fucking
that,
island. That's for sure. It's just the house on a hill that they CGI'd a fucking ocean around it. Like I mean, it might be overlooking the ocean on one side, but like it's not an island.
Yeah.
Right. If it's the thing, like yeah, this was definitely I think in the Amazons movie, and then they go to like the school, and this is like a school set that they use for a lot of stuff. I mean, I guess it's the same school that Sogo school stuff was shot in, and maybe like the coast school stuff from the movie, and that one episode of Wizard. So like I guess this is a location we use over and over, which is fine too. But like yeah, definitely I feel like the shooting restrictions because of COVID kind of held us down.
hampered
But
a lot.
yeah, it hampered it, but it's also that like this is such an interesting idea. Like this should have been an arc in Zio.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely.
Right? Because it's such an interesting idea. Especially because of how well it's done. Like this is like okay, if you did Deno and you did like the Imagines, except like the Imagines were like totally different characters all the time.
Like this should have been given the whole aspect of like
Oh
the time
shit.
trackers.
Sorry, was my mic like not picking up at all? Was it like super
No,
far?
I heard you.
Oh, good, because it kind of tipped over. My bad, continue.
But given the stuff that we got in the show, the explanation for the time jackers, of where they came from, White was, and all this, not that hard to do. It's like it's not. It would not have been that hard of of a thing to put, these alternate dimensions in it. Would have also given a better explanation for Decade showing up.
Oh yeah. I mean honestly I feel like well I mean the decade stuff feeds into the ending of Zio. But you're right,
Right.
like everything after like decade shows up is a lot more interesting because it's got like the multi-dimension shit going on. Like all the stuff in the movies, for the most part, who cares about Gates
Yeah.
Majesty, are
Like
interesting.
it makes more sense for them to start the whole, like if they'd have done this in the middle of it, like back when he showed up as Agito. this would have been fantastic. Just throw him in there and just have the alternate Sogos there, and this is why Decade is here, because dimensions are colliding. This is literally why he exists.
Right, that would have been great. Yeah.
I felt it would have made a better explanation for why Decade was there, other than, hey, by the way, Decade's here.
Well, again, like, it does set up Zio's endgame, because, like, it sets up why everything Schwartz was doing. But you're right, this would have been a much better explanation. But again, like, I don't think they thought of this at all at that time. Because, again, Zio's problem is, like, they want to do a time travel thing, but they don't give a shit about the time travel thing. Right? And so it's like they have no, like, concept of how interesting the alternate reality shit is. Which all the movies realize, and that's why it's so much more interesting.
I will admit, one of the best things about this is watching Schwartz. Like his character for both parts of this were just fantastic. Like, you see him slip, like, Schwartz in the second half is pretty much after everything we've ever seen, so we know he's back to his evil shit. So, like, you have that initial scene of him, cutting up the meat.
Oh yeah.
And you're just like, oh no.
He's killing a student.
And then it's like, oh no, it's just monster meat. Still, what the hell?
It's still fucked up, but it's like, well, at least he didn't murder one of his students.
Or not even murder him, is like, because, if the idea behind this is like, there could dead body, a lot of people have died. They could have just swept him into a bin.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like, the fact that they went, we're gonna make this dude creepy but still be fun as hell.
Yeah, I do agree. I do like when they slip in, like, the like, oh yeah, Schwartz was a villain. He still kind of remembers, but like, he's not here to be evil. He's just here to survive, because, like, he doesn't even really know what the fuck is going on
until the very end.
Right, at which point he's like, fuck that guy. Omazio's here, like, fuck that guy in particular. Like, I will help you guys out.
So
the weirdest part is, like, oh, all the grunts attack, and then, like, everybody goes to, like, final form to power up. I'm like, why? These guys are nothing. Your base form should be able to handle this.
Right.
But it's like, we didn't have extra suits for this.
I will admit, watching the Decade special first does make the reveal a little bit different.
Yeah.
Because I watched the first one. At no point did I think Omazio was a part of this.
Oh yeah.
So, like, the whole killing the true Sogo, my brain went, our Sogo.
Right, that's what I thought too.
The one with, because the whole thing we got is the one who can become Omazio. I was like, well, that's this guy.
Yeah, except,
and then it was like, no, they meant, Omazio Sogo. I'm like, oh shit. Because once they clicked with the kid, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, the kid stuff, like, actually was pretty well done, because, like, no, I don't think anybody expected that, but, like, it makes sense. Like, there's no reason it couldn't happen.
If you watch the first special and know that Omazio is the one behind it all, it makes more sense for it to be the kid.
Right. But, like, I watched the Decade special after this, so I'm like, oh, this makes a lot more sense what happened there. But, like, the kids thing, like, when I was first watching, I did not expect that at all. But yeah, you're right, it does make more sense. I also like how it's like, oh, this is our Soga, but it's like, well, it's the alternate Soga from the end, so he's our Soga but a little bit different. And so it's like, oh, he might not be the guy who gets to be king, because, like, this guy kind of just sees, like, yeah, maybe being king is not really worth all that. But he then, as the thing goes on, like, you kind of see, like, oh yeah, he can become like Omazio if he wanted to, especially because of the thing he pulls with Sogo C.
Yeah,
because it's like, oh, you can see, like, yeah, he's nice, but like he's got that like dark edge where like he's fucking clever. Like he's got that like decade level of, oh, I always have a card up my sleeve, where it's like, oh, I'm just gonna pretend to be somebody else, right? Like he's all nice and all, but like if the thing is like, oh, if it's me or you, like I'm gonna survive, motherfucker. Like he's got this side to him, which is like, oh yeah, this is the guy who can become Omazia because he's the guy who has what it takes to survive. Whereas like he's not gonna show it, but underneath that surface, like he's got something going on.
And
Go
as
ahead.
much of a clusterfuck of a what the hell did I just watch? These 3 episodes, like they were very, very. I'm disappointed with the send off.
Yeah.
And I will continue to be disappointed in the send off because I'm sorry, Tsukasa deserved more than that.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Tsukasa should have been surrounded by everybody else from Decade, but whatever.
Maybe, but I mean, I at least feel like he should have gotten down fighting. Like, but then again, the way they did it, it's more like, well, he could just be mean like, oh, my mission just ended instead of I'm just dying.
Right. So
but the way he says
just,
it,
I'm
it's like,
back to
well,
my world.
Right. The way he says it, it's like it's the perfect cover of like, well, if he ever wants to come back, we can say he's come back, or this is a different alternate version, or this is some other point in the timeline, right? Or we could just say like, yeah, he just came back, he didn't die in that thing. So it's like it's the perfect deniability thing, but it's also like I wish he would have gotten a better send off.
But adding in that line from Waz secures it.
Oh yeah.
Like that 100%. It shuts the door, but like, you know, the whole Tsukasa scene shuts the door well enough to where nobody really is gonna go, oh yeah, he'll be back. But then Waz makes his line, it just goes, cracks the door open.
Yeah, it's like we'll run into him some other times. Like, well, it could be anywhere. You all have like time powers and dimension jumping shit. Well, I mean, these guys don't have dimension jumping. They had just.
But like Decade can literally pull.
Oh yeah, he can.
Like he can pull a Ichigo.
Oh yeah.
Where 70 years down the line, he just decides to come back.
It's true.
The way that they did for Ichigo.
It is true, but I feel like Sogo might be the next decade. But you're right; they definitely left the door open.
Yeah, Sogo absolutely is the next decade. It was the passing the torch.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at this point, I feel like maybe Reiwa writers are not going to have crossovers.
But just in case.
But just in case they do, they've got 2 options now. Most likely Zio. Because
they've literally set up the ability for them. Because, he now has a Reiwa era watch.
Well, 2.
Well, 2. Yeah, because he's got 0-1s too.
Yeah.
So they said the door is open, is whether or not they go through.
Yeah, it's true. I agree. I wish Tsukasa had a better moment at the end there, but like, if they always want, I mean, he did say like he didn't want to be Decade anymore, but like, maybe with the pandemic and everything, he just thought like, maybe I might come back one day. Who knows?
Like the other thing that irritated me was Tsukasa's line when handing over the watch. Because it's a dumb line.
Oh, it sure is.
Because, like, he hands the watch to Sogo and goes, here, it's a power I can't master. Yeah, because
no, he said he can't use.
Oh, yeah, he can't use it. Yeah, because you don't use watches, asshole. It's not a card. Of course you can't use it. Who else would? Which is the other thing that irritates me is, like, the asshole is going to use it.
Yeah, I mean, he does transfer the thing, like he does know what to do, but yeah, that final fight is frustrating as hell.
To me, I'm okay with the final fight up until that particular moment, like the handing over the watch thing. Up until everything after that, fuck the rest of that.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, like they should have just fought side by side, and then like Decade should have been taken out by Amazio or something, or be injured, and then he just like poofs away.
Right.
And
I
like,
would
yeah,
have been
fine,
more
whatever.
okay with that.
I mean, maybe not the best send off, but like I feel like it would have been better than this shit.
I would have been much better if Decade's final line, even with the way this was, would have been to sit there and go, "Never did eat that sea cucumber."
Oh yeah.
Like to acknowledge the whole thing of, and because I feel that would have added a little more poignancy to the whole. This is quote unquote death, because that's the one thing Kaito wanted him to do before he died.
Yeah, I mean,
And it's let it be the one thing he didn't do, and
yeah,
at least voice that regret would help signify he is dead.
agreed. I mean, he
Instead of
does
doing
have a
the
good
whole-
line where it's like, "Oh, so this is where my journey ends," because "Journey Through the
Right.
Decade" is his theme song.
And he certainly journeyed through a decade.
Oh, that's true. It's kind of amazing. Um, yeah, I agree. That send off was not the best. Honestly, like Tsukasa deserved better. But we can be here all day talking about how Tsukasa deserved better. There's still a little more stuff in this. Like, okay, let's talk about like all the other small stuff, and then we'll like finish up with all the different Sogos and Omazio. So like we talked about Tsukiyomi. I like her like rider kick. Like her rider kick is called Time Jack.
Yes, that was a nice touch.
That was great.
Like her being able to use her time tracker powers in suit is a nice touch.
Yeah. And then like yeah, all the stuff with Tsukiyomi for the most part is pretty well done. Like that Omazio stuff for the most part is well done. The school stuff's actually pretty fun because like the time jackers have so much personality, and like and Aura are freaking great always.
Oh, yeah. Like they were a delight for these. Like and this is coming like for me is like I have enjoyed or through the entirety of Zio. Like he was by far one of my favorite villains because he was a very fleshed out character.
Yeah, I mean, too bad they never did too much with him, but like yeah, he had so much potential, you're right.
And like this is seeing his potential in both character and acting actually being showcased through this is fantastic.
Agreed. I also love like the small moments when Aura is being nice. That was super nice. And Gates continues to be a complete asshole. Like, come on, man. Like, did you have to rip up the love letter like in front of the person giving it to you? Like, what a fucking dick. And then, okay, you can say maybe he was angry because they were trying to rush out to meet to save the kids, except they weren't. They were just late for class. Right? It's not even that, like, are you fucking serious? You're doing this while we're trying to save people? Because they weren't. Right? Like, I would kind of sort of maybe get that. Like, he was still a dick, but, like, they weren't even doing that. It just cuts to outside and people dying. I'm like, oh, maybe they don't have their belts, but then they do. And they henshin. I'm like, oh, you're like, fucking useless, Gates.
And that's what one of the things Riot said during this is like, you have the belts. Why are you not attempting to do shit?
Yeah. I mean, like, the one good thing I will give is the one part of the Zio special is like, there's so much more hand-to-hand combat at the beginning where it's like, oh, man, this is like old school Rider where they're punching and kicking the monsters. I'm like, oh, that's fucking rare. And then like all the different Sogos use like the different finishers. Like this is the gun one. This is the sword one. There's the Rider kick. I was like, oh, that's cool. I will admit
I did. The other thing I enjoyed about that is the different henshins.
Oh yeah, that's true. Like all the back pieces are different, right?
Oh, the dumbest one is also the best one.
Which is the teddy bear one?
Yeah, the Kuma-chan.
That's so cute.
It's so dumb.
It is.
But it is the best one.
It actually is surprisingly good. And also like, yeah, he does the full Watru thing where it's like he's super timid out of suit, but in suit he's like, no, fuck it. Decisive as hell. I'm gonna end this shit right here now. And then he fucking
one-shotted.
Yeah, he gets one-shotted because of course, like Omazio, dude, yo, I just realized, well, I guess that was before I realized too. But like definitely in this special, like Omazio is just a DBZ villain in the Kamen Rider universe because he's just like like he's key beaming people and like just like one-shotting,
Yeah.
punching and kicking them across the screen, just like explosions, like key blast up close.
Yeah.
Like he is just a DBZ villain in the Rider universe, and it's fucking great. Like I love that suit so much. Like there's no fucking Rider 2 form, which is weird, right? Or I mean ZO2
Yeah, ZO2's not in this.
in this at all, which is weird.
And which is weird considering the fact that he had that before he had the Decade Key.
Yeah, plus like Decade has to come up with a whole new form to even fight. And Zio's just not even in his like middle form.
Right, he's just base form in it until he uses the Decade Key. Decade Watch.
That's the thing I don't like. Like that last fight is bullshit, but everything else is great. Yeah, all the fucking time jackers are so good. I like how like Sogo is not totally like, oh no, get away from me. It's more like, I don't know if I like you, dude, but like he's not that he has like a problem with like people liking people. It's just like, oh, this is sudden.
Right, and boy, are you jumping quick.
Yeah, it's true.
Because I mean, that's why he takes off the second time. Because like the first time is, oh, I got a love letter. Cool. I don't care who it's from. I'm gonna read this. This is the first one I've ever gotten. And then you have Gates doing his stupid thing.
Yeah.
And then the next time it's done, he's like, Earth starts talking about, kids and marriage, and he goes,
I'm like, oh, that's such a trope, but I'm like, I love how Aura is like, oh, this is gonna be a train wreck. I have to watch this. Right? And then she chases off after him, like, don't leave. I want to see you get rejected. Like, oh my god, she's such a troll.
And then the whole ending of with her and Sogo was very, very well done and touching. He's like,
yeah, that was
he attempts the third time and his feelings get through.
Yeah, it's like
it cost him his life.
Right, exactly. I mean, like that was so telegraphed that it was gonna happen, but I'm like, it's still a good moment because it's like, yeah, the one thing that this special makes you realize is like even Sogo by this point has realized like the whole like I want to be a king thing is like, yeah, that's great and all for your dream, but like other people have dreams, and like if becoming Omazio like destroys theirs, like is that really worth it? And it's like it's not really worth it.
Speaking of Omazio,
yeah,
am I the only one who enjoyed his transformation?
Oh, dude, he's so fucking.
We actually got his transformation, and the best thing about it.
It just pushes forward and
it pushes forward and it completely circles back to Sogo is Omazio.
Oh, right. It's true.
Because it says, the greatest, kindest, maximum demon.
Right, like I want to be the kindest demon king shit.
And the fact that it included that is like, oh. Because at any point it could have been, yeah, I'm future Sogo. You're gonna become me. It's always been anybody else could have been Omazio thing, but this completely solidified it.
Well, I mean, they do go in the future, and Sogo's all like, "Oh no, I'm not gonna become evil. I'm gonna become the kindest demon king." And he goes in the future. It's like, yeah, that's what I did. Yeah. I became the kindest demon king in the land. And then, like, yeah, you're right. His henshin totally.
Because he's like, there's nobody to hurt if they're dead.
Yeah, it's like, I fixed the world. What do you want, asshole? Right?
You just did it his way.
Also, those fucking robots never came back. Right? Like, we've had, like, the whole show and all the movies and everything, and the robots have never come back. Like, what the fuck was the deal?
Dumbest thing.
Not the time robots. Robots will explode in 6 months, right? like activate.
Oh yeah, the giant underground robots.
Yeah, those things. Like they've never come back into anything.
The apocalypse robots.
Right. Where it's like, what the fuck?
Blame Deno.
Yeah, well, it's I guess.
I blame Deno because that time train's still driving.
Yeah, fair enough.
To watch that special still.
Was it good?
I don't know. I haven't watched it yet.
Okay, okay.
I've been told it's good.
Yeah, nice.
I've been told it's adorable.
Rai said that, right? Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so like yeah, Matio's fucking great. Man, that suit is like the nicest suit in this thing.
Oh, that's a much better suit than the one Sugo and
Oh god, it's so much better than like most of the rider suits. Like that thing
Like,
is better than like
excluding-
90% of rider.
it's excluding the Omazio suit that Sugo does have that he gets at the very end. I don't count that as his final form.
Okay.
Because to me, it's just a one-off.
Oh, the Quartzer suit?
Yeah, the court. Yeah, not the overquarter suit, but the it's much better than Zio's, as I call it, the decade suit.
Yeah, that thing is horrible.
Like I like the idea of him pushing the little, little rider silhouettes and all that. It's like, but compared to the Omazio suit, the Omazio suit's golden.
Yeah. It's so nice and clean, that's why. I mean, well, it's not really clean, but it just has such good presence on screen.
Oh yeah.
But
though, to be fair, that is the second best suit in that show.
Yeah,
the first best suit. The best suit is Gates Majesty.
I haven't seen it, but is that a joke? Is that a joke?
Yes, it's a joke.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
Honestly, base form Gates is a really nice suit.
Oh yeah, base form Gates is
great. Like that suit is better than. I mean, well, I'm not gonna say that the actor deserves because like it's not fair because his character doesn't get that much shit to do. And like I'm not even blaming the actor in this because like his lines were terrible in this.
The best thing Gates has done in 2 specials is break his leg. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, he break his foot. That's the best thing he's done in 2 movies.
Yeah. I mean, like, at least he was supportive-ish by the end in this, but, like, it took him forever. And then the one guy that Sogo did help, I'm like, oh, this is such bullshit with this election shit. And it's like, oh, okay, the only way normal Sogo can win is because, like, this one guy that he helped is gonna be the only vote, or, like, the tie-breaking vote, but it's like nobody else voted for him, so it's even worse. He's the only vote, and I got so fucking angry at that.
It was the only vote, well, it wasn't so much the fact he was the only vote.
It's the only one that...
It was the fact he was the only one who voted during the emergency.
Yeah, that they counted, and I'm like, oh, nice.
Nice. Was like, first can even counted.
Yeah, so we have first past the post, emergency situations, voter suppression, and gerrymandering all at once. But it's all good if we do it. If our guy wins, it's fine. Like, my God, man, that pissed me off so much. Because of like all the election shit that's been going on lately, I'm like, oh, I'm like, okay, I don't blame them because they're writing a dumbass arc and they wanted normal Sogo to win. This is the only way he could win.
At least in this case,
but I fucking hate it.
They covered their bases with it, and 2, they had the other Sogo and went, yeah, no, you know what? That's fair. And went, I'll leave it to you. Because that can work as one of 2 ways. Him accepting and moving on, or going, you can have fun with that. I'm going this way.
Yeah.
Have fun, asshole.
I still don't like it. Like, they could have had the same story arc of him helping this guy, and then it would have been fine. Like, he could have come in, do the help thing or something later on, or whatever. Or he could have just been like the Forza thing of like he just keeps fighting and making friends with everyone, and then everybody likes him. Or like the other guys are cooler, but like Sogo's more reliable. Like, it would have been fine. But the way they did it, where it's like, oh, you just have to help one guy, and he's the one guy who voted for you. It's like, and that's the only one that counted. Like, that's so shit. I did not like that at all. Because you had like the other students vote, like there were like 3 students at least who voted before him, and they're like, oh well, it's in the box, we don't have to count it.
Well, no, from what we saw, nothing got put in the box. They were still getting this list.
It's true, but
when the monsters attack.
yeah, but that's still bullshit.
Oh yeah.
That honestly, like,
A
I
good
hate
portion
it.
of this special is bullshit.
Yeah, honestly, like the whole fucking like leadership race thing is so crap. They didn't need to do that. I mean, I guess it sort of sets
Hold
up.
on, it served the purpose.
Yeah,
It distracted us from reality. Schwartz's plan worked.
kind of. I mean, like, honestly, like they should have just left it like we don't get to see who gets to win. Right? It would have been fine. Like, who the hell needed our Sogo to be the one to win? Because it's like he's the one who's gonna fight Amazio. We don't need to have this stupid vote thing.
Right. The voting was stupid.
It was so dumb. But let's get to the final part, the best part. Oh, actually, I mean, I guess we can talk about the side characters. Like, Tsukiyomi is great. Gates, pain in the ass. Little kid Sogo did well enough.
Miso was pretty good.
Miso was so good. But the real show is all the other Sogos. Oh, so K-pop Sogo dies. Like, he doesn't have much screen time. At least he got a little bit of personality in that fight. Wataru,
BNT.
you know, Wataru with the freaking bear, basically, is who that character was. Was like,
was
okay,
adorable.
yeah, he was adorable, but he didn't have anything to do. So it's like, well, yeah, he was just here to die. He was too nice to live. But like, we had our Sogo, DJ Sogo, Delinquent Sogo, and you know, like, I guess the smart Sogo.
Yeah, the brainy Sogo.
Brainy Sogo, and those were great because they're all so different.
The funny thing is, like, I was watching when I watched this by myself, because I watched initially. When I got to DJ Sogo during the whole voting thing, I'm like, well, I had two major questions leading up to that thing. First question is,
Yep.
you motherfuckers are eating crackers and soup when there's fucking candy somewhere?
Oh yeah. Well, no. Smart Sogo brought that in his bag.
I understand that, but still, there's candy somewhere.
Yep.
The fuck. And then DJ Sogo hit, and I'm like, nope, I'm done. I'm out. And I'm like, I quit caring for a good portion of it after that, because I'm like, man, it was entirely off the wall, but at the same time, I had the same thought Ryan ended up having he watched it.
Okay.
I watched it with him. Was, why didn't we get this Sugo?
Oh yeah, he's freaking great. I mean, like, I can kind of get past the like, oh, why are they fucking DJing? Because like they have a whole school, they have to have a gym. They just need someone to distract them. Right? Everybody else is like malnutritious and depressed as hell. They're not gonna fucking start a party, so they need somebody from the outside who's gonna do that. So he's a DJ, so he just did that.
It does play well. It was just one of those, at the time I watched, I'm like, this is, out of
He's
everything
so
I've
good.
seen, like this had topped that list of absurdity in my head, and I'm like,
Yeah, that's fair. It was a little crazy over the top, but also at the beginning, I'm like, oh, this is just fucking 90s Sogo. Right? Like, he's got the, like, chill attitude, like, freaking, you know, like, not school clothes jacket, like the baseball hat. He's got his bike that he rides on. He's got, like, a girlfriend, I guess. I don't know. And they're all like super chill for the most part. He's like a cocky asshole, but he's not like evil. Right? I'm like, you're right. He's freaking great. I'm like, the show would be so different if we had this character. Right? And then like all the other ones keep showing up, and I'm like, holy fuck, so you would have been so different with all of them. Right? Like that delinquent one, like, okay, yeah, that would have been interesting in a movie. There's no way they could do a whole show with that guy. Like, he could have been a secondary, maybe. But man, I would have loved for him and Decade to throw down. This sort of kind of did, but like I would have loved him to just like throw fists at Decade, and Decade just like knock him the fuck out. But that didn't happen. But like, holy shit, man, the acting range is amazing, right? Um, oh, this kind of reminds me of this funny thing where I saw like a picture and it's like, you have Arto and Toma, and they're just dressed in their outfits, and like, I'm like, holy shit, this is the lineup we've gotten, right? Where I mean, like, this has nothing to do with Zio, and it's like, oh, we have businessman and a Doctor Who character right here, right? If you see them in like, oh, if we had like build also, like it would be like, oh, so I guess like Toei's new thing is we're just doing alternate universe younger Doctor Who now with these outfits, right? Because they're like so different. You're right, like Soga's like the one different one, but like since build, that's what it seems like the aesthetic is, right? It's so weird and interesting. But it is interesting that he got to live, and then the comments like, "There's no way the universe is okay with two Sogos, two of them," right? I'm like, oh, one of these is kind of come back with another Zio as a power up or some shit, or like they're definitely setting up another movie. I'm like, is there even another movie? Didn't they already do the 0-1 crossover? Are they crossing Saber with this? I don't know. Maybe they're setting up like if they want to do another crossover with Zio, they'll resolve that. So I'm like, oh man, nice job, Decade. You passed the torch. You passed the ability to fucking just show up in any movie and have unresolved plot lines too. Right?
God damn it.
Which is fine. We've been going for an hour and 45 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've pretty much said everything I wanted to say. Final thoughts.
On a whole, this both sets of these have a lot of unresolved issues. For as well done as they are, in terms of condensing what probably could have been easily, 6 episodes worth of stuff into 3 each.
Oh yeah.
It made for some very off the wall things. But on a whole, it did really, really well. Like I said, it was a nice enough send off for Decade while still leave that door open. And like you said, setting up for Zio to be able to appear in any fucking Rider movie from now on. But I'm very disappointed we didn't get that none of these extra Sogos were the first version that we got for the show.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, like, I don't even know, right? Because like the Sogo in 0-1 is a little bit like like pretty close to the show one. Like the one we get here is the new version that happens at the end of the show.
Right.
Which is like, he's like ours, but like
better.
Different. Yeah, he's better. Yeah, he's less up his own ass.
Yeah, and he's a lot softer.
Agreed.
Like he had a lot of rough edges at the beginning of the series and throughout most of Zio, and it was just more of the minute acting, like the very, very little things like the softness of your look, the being able to push that kindness through like your eyes or your smile and all that. It all just came across really, really forced. Where through this, it really, really well done and properly done.
Agreed. I will say, like, as problematic as Toei like keeps throwing in minority characters and then sort of making them a joke, I mean, they're still at least trying to do some good things where it's like, oh, like Aura says, like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with you liking someone. Like, most of the characters besides Gate are okay with it. So I'm like, yeah, Toei is slowly putting in more representation. That is nice. They're getting there. They've got problems, but at least they're sort of trying.
A lot of the problems aren't necessarily Toei's. Japanese society is still very, very adverse to any of that.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, like, at least the female writers can kind of have their own subplots in movies and not die.
Right.
It's
starting. it's starting to get better, and the fact that Toei is at least acknowledging the problem, because that's how they started it was with the problem, and then going the whole no, it doesn't matter. Like I give them a lot of credit on that because they pointed out that the problem exists and literally basically told everybody who watched the special that no, this is a dumb problem.
Agreed.
Love who you want. Doesn't matter what your bits are.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as problematic like as they are, they're trying to improve, which let's give them a couple more years. That doesn't mean we shouldn't call them out for their bullshit.
Oh yeah,
which we will 100%
do.
do. But like, hey, at least they're trying.
It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, there we go. That's perfect.
Don't backslide, Toei.
Oh, you fucking better not.
This is not the time to learn how to moonwalk. And shut up, Force. I don't care that you've been to the moon.
That's cute. But anyway, that's everything I got. Thanks everyone for joining us. We'll catch you next week Tuesday for the finale of Cure Major, right?
I guess. I want it to go.
Yeah.
The show's been so good. Like, if you've not been watching it, you need to watch it.
Well, I mean, maybe once the show ends, I'll catch up.
It's very, very much worth a series to be binged.
Okay, that's cool.
Because you'll watch it go from funny parody to kind of a mixture to, oh my god, this is awesome.
Okay, so like sort of a Tokuger type thing.
But better.
But yeah, probably more even than Tokuger. And next week Wednesday for Saber, which again Saber has gotten better. I'm not sure if you would say it's gotten good because it's kind of in the middle of an arc, but like it's a lot better than when it originally started.
I know I need to watch the last episode of it because I didn't.
The last episode's a lot of setup. Like it's not bad, but it's just 100% setup.
Yeah, because I don't know the whole primitive dragon aspect too.
Yeah, the problem with that is like I feel like either that was
Can we
badly
stop doing that?
Doing what?
The primitive dragon-esque thing of here's an out of control rider.
Well, that's
an out of control power. Can we stop it?
I feel like it's an okay trope, especially for the mid-season one, because it's like, okay, we can't. It's a strong thing, but like one, you either have to get a new power or you have to tame it. So it's like it's a good story arc, and it's also like, yeah, this is why you can't spam this power because like it's not controllable. But you're right. It's kind of a trope. Become like a modern writer trope, but you're right, they're doing it like way too much. But my biggest problem with that is like the way they shot it is like either it was badly suit acted or badly directed. The way they shot it, it's like it doesn't have the menace that form should have.
Right. Like the biggest issue I have is we've had that trope in like the last 4 seasons.
Oh yeah, that's true. I mean, like I guess that's just a standard writer trope now.
Can we go one series without that trope? Just one.
I don't know. I mean, I like it, but yeah, you're right. It's way overdone.
Given the fact that we've have this many writers and it's going to be something evil, or there's evil writers in this, we don't need it. It's unnecessary.
Well, we don't know if it's evil. It's just it's a lot of power that's hard to control. So like it could be good.
But if we've got the whole it can attack allies thing, we don't need that. That's what the villain writers are for. Stop it.
No, that's.
But anyways,
true. That's a good point.
I will do my best to attempt to be there for that podcast. I can't make any promises because overtime has been kicking.
That's fair.
And I'm going to be on it till at least mid-April because people quit.
I mean, as long as you're there for the Sentai one, I think that'll be fine. Rider, I could manage. we did get some lore and stuff going on, sort of. I mean, it's nothing
definitely
major.
check that out.
It's I mean, I guess it's a little major, but like it's all just set up.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks
For
everyone.
those of you who stuck around for an hour and 54 minutes, thank you.
Yes, thank you all for joining us, and we'll catch you next week. Later.
God damn it, Decade.